Hey, welcome to Cedar Creek Homestead. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. I want to wish you a happy new year. We're coming to a close of 2020. I just put grain out for the cows and fed them a little bit here, and starting this new 2020 year out, and we don't know what this year is going to hold. This past year, you know, the cattle prices, if you're a cattle rancher, it has been a tough year, and I've heard of some folks having to sell out because they just can't survive in this prices that we're getting right now. I'm hoping here in 2020 things will be better. You know, last year there was also the Holcomb fire up in Holcomb, Kansas. Tyson's plant that caught on fire, and because of that, the cattle prices plummeted. Beef prices at the store went up, our prices went down, and all the while the slaughter number stayed the same or even went above, and you know, it didn't make any sense at all. I know the USDA is investigating that. Some think it's some kind of conspiracy. I think it's just the free market. That's the way it is. And I know RCAF and some of them's looking into it, and the Cattlemen's Association seems to be hands off on it, as what I hear. I'm a member of the Cattlemen's Association, but it appears they're kind of hands off on it. It's not going to change anything. A friend of mine had a bunch of cattle he took up to Oklahoma City, sold a big load of them. They brought the lowest prices of that day of what was reported by the USDA, and he has really nice stuff. The stuff he raises is just top notch. The way he feeds them, pampers them, takes care of them is just really well. And anyway, he called the sell barn and complained, and the broker he was using said, well, you've complained before about other things. We just assume you take your business elsewhere. So he said, you know, I wasn't satisfied with that. So he called one of the owners of the sell barn there at El Reno, Oklahoma, and said, hey, this is what's going on. And he says the guy called him back later and said, we're going to give you extra 15 cents a pound. And that was a pretty big check he got extra. I was like, hey, I'd like to have that. So that's his story that he's gotten. He said they told him, said probably some of the buyers weren't paying attention, or some had took a break or whatever, and his sold at a time when there just really wasn't anyone in there wanting them. And but anyway, the owner said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and pay you extra money, and I believe he says 15 cents a pound, which if you have a whole pot load of them, you got some money coming to you. And so anyway, I was glad to hear that, good news for somebody. But at the end of the year here, a lot of our sell barns closed down because it's kind of a messed up time, because the holidays are in the middle of the week, and a lot of the sell barns around here, just about all of them, are just closed. But after New Year's, starting next week, the 6th, I guess Oklahoma City will have a sale. They may have had one the week of New Year's, I'm not sure, but most around here the farmers just don't sell anything, don't worry about it much. I got a friend that was going to go sell a few and buy some bulls at a special sale they were having the other day up at Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and I haven't heard how that turned out or anything, but I did buy a bull. I was another bull. I try to keep at least 2 bulls. I'm getting up there about 100 head of cattle. I really need 3 or 4 bulls. The way I do my breeding cycle, I take the bulls out so I don't get any June, July, and August calves. Just my preference. So the rest of the time they get to free range, and I haven't had any problems with getting the cows bred or anything like that. But I do for sure need at least 2 bulls, and I'll probably buy me another thing about getting a red white face. But anyway, the other day at Shakota, Oklahoma, they had a special sale on a Saturday, and you could watch it on video. You might check out where you are. You can watch sales by video. And anyway, one of my relatives works for the sale barn, and I was watching it here at home. I didn't have time to go to the sale, and I thought, well, I don't need anything. You know, wouldn't mind buying a bull, but I figured those bulls were going to go sky high. So I watch, and the bulls, Sim Angus, Herefords, about everything was from $1,500 to $1,800. Some brought even less than $1,500. Well, I called my relative up, and I said, hey, he's up there, works in the little booth where the auctioneer is. And I said, hey, if you can, buy me one of them bulls. If you can get one for $1,500, some of them that's going less than 15, you know, I'd pay up $1,500 real easy, like, and just let me know, and I'll come over and pick it up here after a while. So an hour or so went by, and he called me. He said, hey, he said that those bulls, he said, I didn't get to get you one. And that guy PO'd them and said he didn't want to sell them. He had to have at least $2,000 for them, which they were well worth $2,000 bulls, and I would have gave $2,000. But in the meantime, he told me, he said, well, your aunt has got some bulls for sale, and said she's trying to get rid of my uncle had passed away. So in the process of all that, my uncle had passed away some time back, and she still has some of the cattle, and she's selling down her herd, and one of our relatives is taking over, but a son-in-law of hers. So she's still retaining the bulls that they had. So these are some 2-year-old bulls, and they usually sell a lot of bulls and stuff every year. And anyway, he said, call them and see what you might want to call them before you come over and pay $2,000 for a bull. So I did, and my aunt and them made me a really good deal on a bull, and which they help us and we help them when we can and stuff. But I'm not going to disclose what I paid for the bull, but I got a really good deal on a 2-year-old bull. And he's in here eating somewhere. He's young. I got another bull that's a 3-year-old. We used him last summer. He did really well. And I had an older bull. I sold the older bull. So now I got this new 2-year-old, and he's pretty tall. He's a little longer legged than what I would probably prefer, but he's a Sim Angus, meaning he's part Simmental and part Black Angus. And I like crossed up stuff. I think crossbreeding does the best in this atmosphere. But anyway, I'm hoping in 2020, I've got 27 calves that I've kept back this year, just hoping that the price will come up. And all the while they're getting bigger. They have grown a lot since I weaned them in the fall. And I'm hoping sometime in the spring here to take them somewhere and try to get some good money out of them. This year, I've actually been in the red here. We've spent more than we've had come in, and you know, a lot of years that's just how it is. You know, I work out and I'm able to make up the difference, but I don't like having to make up the difference. I'd rather put the other money to other use and not have to do it, but I got it tied up here. I would be in the black if I sold them already. I would be even, but I don't want to just be even. I want to make a profit, so I'm hanging on to them, going to see what happens. Also, it'll put it on 2020 taxes instead of 2019 taxes, so that might help me out with taxes this year. And it might not help worth nothing. Sometimes that happens, that it's no real benefit whatsoever, but we'll find out how that is. But anyway, in 2020, something that I do, and I have a little notebook. I meant to bring it out, and I was going to show it to you. Not what I have wrote down in it, but just a regular old spiral notebook. It's got different sections, but I put goals for the year. And like what I want to do here on the farm, what I want to do in my business, my personal life, my spiritual life, family life. I make notes of all this stuff, and I write it down. The Bible says write it down and make it plain. So I believe by doing so, what I do is in 2 or 3 months, I'll go back and kind of look at my list and see. And you know, it surprised me this year, most everything I had on my list, I got accomplished. And I think if you write it down, you'll find you'll get a lot more stuff accomplished. And it go back, instead of just haphazardly just chasing everything, because I got a million things that needs to be done. but I write down the most important accomplishments. Now, if I end up getting some of the others that wasn't written down, that's fine, but I want to get the ones that's wrote down. But if you make you some goals, and I'll just tell you, for example, maybe you want to learn more about a certain subject on your farm, write that down. You want to become BQA certified. There's some like that, some don't like it, but you can go on the internet and you can get that for free. Eventually it's going to come down to you're going to have to be BQA certified to be able to sell cattle. That's coming eventually. So if you got time, go ahead and do it. They got different categories. We're a cow-calf operator, and so it's not hard. It's no big deal. But if you're against it, just don't want to do it, you don't have to. I mean, right now anyway. But anyway, you say, okay, I want to be BQA certified this year. Maybe I want to build a new cow lot. Maybe I need more feed troughs out. Maybe I'm going to go around my property this year and really beef up my fences. I'm going to really fix stuff up this year. That's what you write down on your list. Maybe in your personal life, you spiritually speaking, you want to get better spiritually. Hey, write down, you know, whatever it is. Maybe in your family life, maybe this year, one of the things I have thought about a little bit more is I may want to spend a little more time on leisure activities, maybe going fishing a little bit more. My son bought a boat last year, and we went fishing, and I used to fish a lot. And sometimes on Saturday mornings we'd get up and go fishing, and I'm going to try to do it more this year. On Saturday mornings, I'm off work and everything, get up early, go fishing, then I can come in and do things around the homestead that need to be done when I get back home. But I want to go out there and enjoy life a little bit. Maybe you do a lot of that. Maybe you already are one that you could do a lot of hunting and fishing, and maybe you need to do the opposite. Say, I'm going to work a little bit more and do a little less playing in 2020, or whatever the case may be. One thing I want to be is a better rancher. I keep trying to develop my skills so that I can be a better farmer and rancher. I want to be a better caretaker of the cattle. You know, this time of the year is the challenging time because you try to keep them fat and looking good, and sometimes it's not always the easiest. Anyway, in 2020, who knows what's going to happen. I hope cattle prices will just skyrocket, and we'll just have a bumper year. You know, I always say prepare for the worst, or prepare for the worst and pray for the best. And I'm certainly hoping and praying for the best here, but I'm preparing for the worst. If prices don't come up, I'll still be around and I'll still survive. And if you're going through a rough time in your farm, maybe 2019 with the floods and everything, you're having a rough time with that. I understand there's people some that have went through rough times, but there's some that have adapted and they're really turned out. I've had people tell me that actually 2019 was a good year for them, even though they got less cattle prices, even though this and that and all that, because one thing, we had lots of rain here in Oklahoma, so the grass grew, so we got to start feeding hay later, which saved some money. Also, there was abundant hay crop this year, hay just everywhere. And so a lot of ranchers took that as, even though the floods in one way caused trouble early, now at the end of the fall, there was actually a beneficial side to the heavy duty rains too. Some of my farmer friends that row crop, they planted back where they had been flooded, and it looks like sand on the land. It just wiped out what was already there. Some of their crops was coming up, and it just wiped them out, just covered them with I call it silt, but looked awful. But they come back, replanted crops in there, and they say they had bumper crops this year, and they attribute that, most of them do pivot irrigation, so they get plenty of rain, but they attributed the bumper crops that they had because they believe that brought in nutrients and stuff and dumped it on the soil. Whatever the case was, they are thankful, and they've actually, most of them are going to survive, and they get a little handout from the government. They said they'd rather not have that, but you know, they'll take it. Hey, anyway, I wish you well this 2020. If you haven't started you a list, get you a little notebook. You don't have to share it with nobody, but just write down some goals in your life and try to be better in 2020. I think everybody could improve a little bit, including myself. Hey, Happy New Year. Wish you the best for 2020. We'll see you next Thursday here on Cattle Talk. God bless you, and we're gone.